At this point in time, we've come to the portion of our meeting for public commentary. Anyone who would wish to step up to the microphone, please do so. Please provide your name and address and keep your comments to about 5 minutes.
Jim O'Reilly, 50 Independence Way. Just wondering, let's see, the 916, what is a self-examination of the budget resolution? I'm sure it's not introspection on the budget. What does that mean?
As a requirement for the state of New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, when we do our budget, we have to make sure that we have done everything like crossing the I's, dotting the T's, that we've looked at everything responsible for the budget, and then forward that down to the state of New Jersey advising that we have done that as part of our budget preparation. We do get oversight from the state of New Jersey about every 3 or 4 years, but in those intervening years, we do self-examination.
Oh.
This is certifying that we have done all of the proper steps to prepare the budget for 2016.
Okay, thank you. Is it appropriate to ask Mr. Nunn the reason for his recusal?
I would say only if he chooses to comment.
It's, I made a decision when I was appointed and then successfully elected that any incidents involving the police department that stemmed from conduct or incidents while I was still the municipal prosecutor, I would recuse myself from voting.
Oh, I see. So this will expire with time.
Yes.
Oh, that's what I was concerned about. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Kathy Wilson, 20 Beechwood Drive. I would like to comment on this front page article from last week's Newsbee, in which Mayor Caffrey urges Morris Township residents to support a bill that could level the playing field for school taxes. I want to thank Mr. Caffrey for highlighting this bill. In my opinion, it raises issues that are worth knowing about and paying attention to. This bill, called A1475, has to do with pilot programs. For anyone who's not familiar, PILOT stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. Pilot programs give municipalities the ability to encourage redevelopment of so-called blighted properties by offering developers a tax incentive. Instead of paying the full tax obligation they would normally be assessed, developers can instead make lower payments in lieu of taxes. These payments go directly to the municipality. The goal Mr. Caffrey has highlighted is for some portion of pilot money to go to the schools. Since Morristown and Morris Township share a school system, if some portion of pilot money collected by either one of these municipalities were to go to the schools, the amount owed by residents in school taxes would be reduced. I agree with this idea in principle. I think it is fair for some portion of pilot monies to go to the schools. I've done some research on this bill, including a detailed conversation with someone from the League of Municipalities who's familiar with it. I've got to say there are a lot of moving parts here. The issues are more complicated than you might think. A couple of bottom line comments that I want to share are these. The language of this bill, A1475, as it's currently written, does not accomplish the goal of ensuring that some portion of pilot monies go to the schools, nor does it require the schools to reduce the levy they pass on to taxpayers by the amount of any pilot money they might receive. In my opinion, these are two key issues that need to be addressed, and I hope the current language in the bill will be revised to do that. I'm totally on board with the idea that pilot programs, as they presently exist, are not fair and do need to be changed. To me, a fair bill, a good bill, would maintain the incentive aspect of pilot programs to both municipalities and to developers, while also building in a provision for some portion of that pilot money to go to the schools. How to determine that amount, whether by a percent or a formula, the current bill does not address that. I think it should. Nor does the current bill include a requirement for schools to apply whatever pilot money they might receive to reducing the amount that taxpayers are asked to fund. I think it should. While I do not support this bill, A 1475, as it's currently written, I do support the general principle Mr. Caffrey has raised. It is fair for some portion of pilot monies to go to the schools. I think this is an important issue for residents to know about and monitor, and I thank Mr. Caffrey for highlighting it.
Thank you. Just very quickly, and I understand where you're coming from. I just want to just clear from a language point of view, because I did work with Assemblyman Carroll, and I know Assemblyman Bucco have signed on. You're right, the money is not appropriated to the schools, but what it does do is puts that property on the tax rolls. That will automatically mean it will be assessed for the schools. So I agree with you, yeah, the money doesn't go to the schools, it's basically, the bill will allow, whether it gets passed or not, let me tell you, there will be a lot of opposition from the Assembly and Senate, but the bill will allow for those properties that are pilots to be assessed, in which case then, when it comes down to, for those who don't realize, the Morris School District comes up with their budget. Let's say it's about $100 million. Last couple of years ago it was $100 million, so it's going to be about 106. Let's use $100 million for just nice round numbers, so I don't have to take out my calculator. Currently, Morris Township, because of the total assessed value of the real estate per town, and that's how the school budget is divided up in a regional school district, pays about 67% of the burden, about $67 million of the Morris school budget. Morristown's paying $33 million, although the pupil breakdown is about 50-50. That is what it is, that's the way it's been, there'll be no changing that. So when, as Ms. Wilson explained, when a property is, when a developer comes in and is given an opportunity in a blighted type area, they pay a payment in lieu of taxes. That property in itself does not go towards the total assessed value of the real estate for both Morristown and Morristown. So it basically, it's almost as if it doesn't exist. So if you have a $5 million property that's a pilot, and it's a pilot for 5 years, that $5 million property made a one lump sum payment up front, Morristown or whomever, whatever town, it doesn't matter, keeps those dollars, none of it goes towards the schools. And unfortunately, the inequity works against us, right? We're paying the majority of that burden, 67%. If the situation were flipped, I'm not quite sure what Morristown would be doing, because they know now that property doesn't go on the assessed rolls, so it comes out of that whole pilot program. So they're not assessed any other taxes from year after year. They've made the one payment. It's basically a property that is not on their rolls. So, of course, no money is going to go to the schools. No money goes to the town, the municipality. Nobody goes to the county. And this bill also is trying to make sure that the counties are made whole. Because as you go into some of these other areas, not only Morristown, there are many properties that are payment in lieu of taxes, and the county taxes are being paid and brought up by everybody else. So, you know, the pilots, they make the yearly payments to the town, and it is outside the rolls. So.
Thank you for clarifying that. Just one question. The person from the League of Municipalities is the person who kind of filled me in on all this. And by the way, the League is opposing this legislation as it's currently written. That's
Of course they are.
What do you mean?
Okay, well, let me tell you, the bill is not going to make it too far. It doesn't have a lot. It's unfortunate because it's really just a matter of fairness.
It is fair.
But it's not gonna make it too far. It has a lot of opposition within the Assembly and the Senate. You know, from the majority, you know, I hate to make it partisan, but from the majority party, it has a lot of opposition. And it will struggle to go anywhere, I will tell you that now. And that's why I'm kind of getting behind this, because Morris Township residents are being affected. We're on the back of the envelope numbers, and I know Mr. Quinn and I sat there and did it. It probably cost Morris Township taxpayers about $250,000 a year in school taxes that would have normally been picked up by those properties in Morristown. That's just the 33%. That's a 67% burden that we're picking up that is not being paid towards the schools.
Right.
And it's, you know, what's fair is fair. And all properties, if the school's gonna be assessed based upon assessed value of real estate, all assessed value of real estate should go into the pool. And there shouldn't be any that gets sidelined out and kind of hidden. Meanwhile, while that property is vibrant and active and they're paying yearly payments to the town, but yet it stays outside the school and the county factor.
So are you saying that, from your point of view, the main benefit of the bill as it is written is that it puts the pilot program properties on the tax?
It would put them into the assessed value equation. I don't care how you do it. It doesn't matter to me. Just, you know what, the schools are gonna be made whole no matter what. If it were an individual town, without a regional school district, 100% of the burden would be picked up by that town's taxpayers, which you could make the argument that that's okay because there's going to be an economic development for that town down the road that hopefully would benefit down those taxpayers. We'll never receive the benefit of any economic development from that property. We're just going to receive, for lack of a better word, the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I agree with you in principle that some portion of it should go to the schools, however that's accomplished.
that's right, I agree.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public care to be heard? I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.